It's fantasy time.
Yeah, we're talking fantasy sports, not Dear Penthouse. But don't worry, winning your league is way better than porn.
This is Fantasy Hockey Time with Dean Millard.
Can you dig it?
Presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports.
Can you dig it?
Get in the game where you own the game.
Joe own the Chiefs. Owns.
Hello there, and welcome to Fantasy Hockey Time, presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports here on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. My name is Dean Millard, and hopefully I'll help you win your league, and not only that, try to make it a little bit better. Not just about stats and trades and drops and things like that, but also rules and opinions and all that kind of stuff. Interaction with you, hopefully, as well. Thank you so much for watching or listening, whatever you are doing. If you're watching, congratulations. Welcome to the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. We're going to start things off on every show with a question that we'll throw out to you and get some conversation started. You can reply to me on Twitter at Duck Millard. And here is this week's question.
This is a serious message. Peace and love. Peace and love.
You're in a brand new Dynasty Hockey League. Connor McDavid is obviously going number one. Who do you take second? McDavid is the obvious choice. Like back in the day when I grew up playing in hockey pools, you split Gretzky's points. Somebody got Gretzky's goals. Somebody got their assists. You're getting 92 goals, 163 assists, things like that. It was just ridiculous. So you split them up. Now, there's not as much dominance as in that regard, but there is a clear number one player and the best player when it comes to fantasy. If you would take somebody over McDavid, I'd sure like to know. I have heard people say they would take Sidney Crosby if you wanted to win right now. I think Sidney Crosby's a great player, but if you're in a dynasty league and you don't take Connor McDavid first overall, I'd really like to know why. For me, it would be Leon Draisaitl. And, I'm a little bit biased because I've been able to watch him so much, a little bit with Prince Albert and then obviously as an Edmonton Oiler. There are other choices, of course, Nathan McKinnon. People will say Austin Matthews. Mitch Marner is phenomenal. I think Mitch Marner is an amazing hockey player. Not enough people are talking about Jonathan Huberdeau and what he's doing in Florida. But I would be going with Draisaitl. First of all, I think he's the best passer in the league, especially on the backhand. And he's had a 50-goal season and would have another 50-goal season almost assuredly if it wasn't stopped last year. So I would go with Leon Draisaitl. Since 2018, he has the second most goals and the second most assists in the NHL. So I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up on Twitter at Duck Millard and chime in with who you, if you were taking second pick, who you would take second overall behind McDavid. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports. It's the most realistic and high-stakes fantasy platform out there. The UFHL, Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, nearly mimics everything about the NHL, including a scouting program and a prize pool approaching $50K. Right now, there is the UFHL and there is the UFAHL, covering off the American Hockey League. And a new sport will be soon launched as well. Get in the game where you own the game. Follow at UFF Sports, at UFH League, or at UFS Network on Twitter to find out more. There is also an auction. If you're listening to this on Monday, March 1st, it ends today at 6 p.m. Eastern for the 32nd franchise. So you can join this league. The bidding right now is just over $2,500 the last time I checked. So the link is scrolling at the bottom of the screen and our ticker. We use Air Auctioneers. So check it out, find out more, and join us, if you will, in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. All right, here is today's starting lineup. We're going to do 3.5 stars. That is the top three and an honorable mention from this past week. we'll give you 5 lineup decisions. Now, some of these will be tough choices. Some of them might seem like no-brainers, and most of them will be in between. We'll have the MASH 4077 unit, who's out, who's returning on the men. We'll make some bold predictions. How bold can you get? Fantasy Island is where I will vote somebody on or off fantasy hockey teams that I have, and maybe you can chime in as well. And we'll have your fantasy beef, just what is bugging you. Plus, we'll wrap up with rules of fantasy engagement. Each week, I'll give you a different rule that I either use in one of my leagues or I've heard from different people. So those are all the things that we will be talking about on this program. And I'd love for you to be able to chime in.
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
I am indeed the only one here in the Marsh, just outside of Edmonton. That's the studios for me and Podcast Alley. The several shows that I could do. Check them out at podcastalley.ca. But if you want to get a hold of me for this show, hit me up on Twitter at Duck Millard. You can email me fantasyhockeytimepod@gmail.com. Also, give a follow to the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, UFSN Network. Or UFS Network on Twitter, and you can also email us there at ufsn@uffsports.com. So several different ways to get in touch, and we'll tell you more about the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network as we roll along in the program. So let's get going now.
Game on!
Face off.
Love the 80s video game Blades of Steel. I definitely was more of a ice hockey type of guy for sure. The fat, skinny, medium guy, 4-on-4. I don't know how Poland made it in that game. They must have been really, really strong. Or I don't remember Poland being that strong in hockey, so I don't know how they got in there. But Blades of Steel was obviously a lot of fun as well. So 3.5 stars. We start with an honorable mention, and that honorable mention is going to the Pittsburgh Penguins defenseman Chris Letang. There's been a lot of talk about what's happening with the Penguins, and obviously they had the big shakeup early on, and now you got Brian Burke and Hextall in there, as the management group. But Chris Letang has played really well. The Penguins got shut out on Sunday morning. I'm recording this on Sunday night. But Letang is my honorable mention. He picked up 2 goals, 3 assists in just 4 games. 2 of them were power play points of his 5 points. He also had a game-winning goal. If your league rewards bonus points or anything like that, I know in some leagues you have bonus points for game-winning goals, and 9 shots, and most leagues have that. So pretty productive week from the blue line for Chris Letang. Led all blue liners in points in the past 7 days. Number 3 for me is the super rookie Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild. He had 3 goals and 3 assists in just 4 games, all of them even strength. So unfortunately, no bonus for power play points there. He was +6. If your league unfortunately has ± as a stat, it is not only the worst stat in the NHL, but it's even worse as a fantasy stat. Unfortunately, I'm in a bunch of leagues that do have ±. I'm trying to get rid of it. I hate ±, as much as I hate the shift in Major League Baseball. And if you've ever listened to any of my other baseball shows, you know that I hate the shift. I actually have a show planned later on called Ban the Shift that I'm going to bring out at some point. But anyway, Kaprizov really, really strong this year. Likely right now the leading Rookie of the Year candidate. Although Pius Suter scored again for the Blackhawks tonight. He takes over the rookie goal lead. And by the way, Patrick Kane, 400 goals. Alex DeBrincat, 4 points in that game. That was a fun game to watch Sunday night if you're a Blackhawks fan. Not so much if you're a Detroit Red Wings or if you're Thomas Grice's stick, who did not have a good night. But I sold DeBrincat. I traded him in the UFHL in the offseason, or early, when there was no season. I think I might have sold low on him. Second on the Blackhawks in points and behind Patrick Kane, who was obviously a definitive fantasy starter. So anyway, Kaprizov is the third star of the week, and as mentioned, probably the rookie of the year. Matt Zuccarello is star number 2 for fantasy hockey time. He led players in scoring with 2 goals and 6 assists in 4 games. Threw in a penalty minute there. I have my thoughts on penalty minutes that I'll share throughout different episodes of this show. And 9 shots for Zuccarello and the Wild, who are absolutely surging right now. They have won 6 straight. They're just a point back of Vegas for first place in the West Division. And Zuccarello has been absolutely on fire. 11 points in 7 games since returning from off-season arm surgery. He's only played 7 games. And he's always been a mid-50s kind of point. I think he peaked early 60s one season with a 61-point season. So obviously he's not getting that production this year. But based on, point per game and pro-rated, he's going to have an impact now that he's back. He's probably not going to keep up at this pace, but he might have put you over the edge this week. And, hopefully the Wild keeps surging and he keeps working for you. So he's number 2. And Andrei Vasilevsky is the number 1 star. 2 shutouts, 3-0 record, a .67 goals against average, and a .975 save percentage. With Andrei Vasilevsky this week, you just swept the goaltending categories. Like, there was nobody that is probably going to be able to match that, as far as wins. There might have been a guy who played 1 game and picked up some great numbers, but nobody's getting you 3 wins and those numbers. So he's played 16 of the 19 Tampa games this year. I don't know at what point if they, call off the dogs a little bit with him, but if you have him, you're golden. You have the best goalie in fantasy right now. And that's good if you're going to the playoffs. It's also good if your team is not very good and you want to start a rebuild. This is a guy who will probably get you a king's ransom. I don't know when trade deadlines are in your league, but if you're a team that is looking to leverage this guy, start putting him out there on your trade blocks now if you want to rebuild. And if you're not, you're just riding this guy into the playoffs and hoping he continues to do it, which, worked pretty well for the Tampa Bay Lightning last year. Also of note, different leagues have different categories like hits and block shots. While the leading shot blocker, Adam Larson, and the leading hitter, Brady Cachuck, also are the leading hitters and block shots of this week. So both of those guys living up to that. Brady Cachuck, obviously you're getting a whole lot of value out of that guy as a fantasy player with hits. If your league has that, you get some penalty minutes and obviously some points. Obviously the plus minus, unfortunately, if you had that, is going to suffer. Again, plus minus, worst stat of all time. But Adam Larson, most fantasy leagues are not probably clamoring to have Adam Larson. In the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, we're all about everything about the NHL. So we got 23-man rosters. We have 31 teams, soon to be 32. So Adam Larson is going to have some value in that league where we have different things like peripheral stats and a guy who is going to play in. Well, he plays in a top 4 role, so he will be on a fantasy team in the UFHL because that's how deep everything is. We also have a 27-player protected list, scouting programs. It's absolutely unbelievable. So anyway, there is a look at the 3.5 stars. And now it's time to get to some lineup decisions that I think about this week. Some of them will be decisions that I'm going to be making. Others I'm looking at different players. And we'll start off with Kevin Hayes. He's facing the Penguins 3 times of his 4 games. Almost every team has 4 games this week. And for the Flyers, Kevin Hayes has been really good against the Penguins. In 3 games this year, he has 3 points. And Tristan Jarry didn't play today when they lost, so he'll probably get the start. Has certainly, turned things around for Pittsburgh lately, but he's still giving up a lot of goals. Hayes is getting second-line minutes. He's also getting some second-line power play time for the Flyers. and he has 5 points in his last 3 games. So he's a guy that I actually just traded for in one of my leagues. So I'm definitely getting him in the lineup against the Penguins. I have Stamkos and I have Backstrom as my 1-2 centers in that league. So Hayes is certainly slotting in sort of that flex position for me. The other lineup decision for a lot of people, and I'm making this in one of my leagues, is Jamie Benn and the Stars are struggling right now. And this is if you're looking ahead and maybe for a playoff run, this is a good time to buy low on Jamie Benn if you can have room to stash him on your roster, because he shouldn't be in your lineup right now. He is not playing that well. Just 1 goal in his last 10 games. Dallas is last in their division, and they've only played 16 games because of that awful storm in Texas, and obviously with COVID affecting different things. So if you have room and you're a pretty strong team, you could be able to buy low on Jamie Benn right now. Don't have him in your lineup, though. Just do not put him in your lineup until the Stars start going. As mentioned, they've only played 16. They get Tampa, the Blue Jackets twice, and the Predators this week. So put him on the bench, buy low if you think he could be able to turn it around, and maybe Sagan gets back in time for him to have a late fantasy push and help your lineup. But I would not recommend starting him right now. Unless this week he all of a sudden gets hot and you're in daily lineup changes, or you're playing in any of those daily leagues. Number 3 for me is about Jordan Kairu, and he got off to a great start, but he is cooling off a little bit. He had 12 points in his first 10 games, as many as he had in his first 44 NHL games. However, just 5 points in 10 games, which is not awful. It's not Jamie Benn. He doesn't have 1 goal in his past 10. He has 5 points in his past 10 games. So I'd be, if you were benefiting off Jordan Kairu, I'm not saying he can't rebound and, be a productive player. I don't think he was going to keep up that over a point per game pace. So now could be a good time to sell with Jordan Kairu, depending on your depth. If you obviously need him to have success, then you're not wanting to do that for sure. But certainly I think it's a good opportunity to get something for Jordan Kairu, as he certainly got off to a great start. All right, how about this guy who came back just a little while ago? Anthony Cirelli scored a beauty on Saturday night versus the Stars, and also added an assist as the Lightning beat the aforementioned Dallas Stars 5-0. Cirelli had missed 6 games with an upper body injury, and before the injury went pointless in 2 games, so it could have been certainly something that was affecting him, that they wanted to just give him a little bit of a rest. But before that, he was a point per game guy. In his first 10 games of the season, he got points in every way. 5-on-5, power play, even shorthanded, 2 game winners, bonuses for that if you have that in your league. And the Tampa Bay Lightning get the Stars 1 more time this week, and then 3 versus the Hawks, who routed the Red Wings on Sunday night. So if you had Cirelli early on, congratulations. You can put him back in your lineup. That goal he scored on Saturday night was absolutely amazing. And the final lineup decision that I will recommend is that you ride the flower. Marc-Andre Fleury has been counted out again. First of all, Pittsburgh decided they didn't need him, and he took another team to the Stanley Cup Finals. And then the Vegas Golden Knights went out last year and picked up Robin Lehner. And here we are, the Flower leading them, as Lehner unfortunately is injured. And so I'm not saying that when Robin Lehner comes back, that I think it's probably going to go back to some sort of split, not 50-50, probably 60-40, 70-30. But there will be a time when Marc-Andre Fleury does struggle this season or does get a bit of a rest. So, I in one of my leagues, I've got Fleury and Jordan Binnington. And, if I got penalty minutes, it'd be great, because Binnington went on that, did his best. I want to fight everybody, like the kind of the Chihuahua going after the Doberman pinchers, like Devin Dubnyk, 6'6". And Devin Dubnyk said, he told Binnington, "You're 165 pounds, get off the ice." So Binnington would be good if he got me PIMS, and he has been fairly reliable, but thankfully, I had started Fleury the other night. I didn't start Binnington. And early on in the season, it was Binnington getting most of my starts on nights where they had conflicting. Thankfully, we're daily lineup changes in that league, but more and more I'm riding the Flower as well. So I would, I'm taking my own advice, and I would certainly recommend that you do as well, and get Marc-Andre Fleury in your lineup as much as possible.
'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off. No, it isn't. Well, what's that then? I've heard worse. You've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible!
All right, the MASH 4077 unit, as we are calling it. Absolutely loved that show. And in high school, my good friend Jeff had a van. We called it the Love Van because we thought we were pretty good with the ladies, and really we weren't. But we would sit in that the Love Van before dances, and we would invite our girlfriends in, and it was basically an IV drip of beer. I absolutely loved those MASH 407 pre-dance days, but this is obviously based on the injuries that players are suffering right now. And Jakob Markstrom, this is going to be one to watch for those people that have him in fantasy, especially if you're in a weekly league where your lineups are locked in. Markstrom was eligible to come off the IR with an upper body injury on Saturday, and that didn't happen. So watch for him Monday night. The Flames face Ottawa again, and then it's the Oilers for two more against... but then it's the Oilers before two more, rather, against the Sens. It's a 4-game week for the Flames. So getting Markstrom back would be great, but obviously you're going to be watching for news of that on Monday. Nico Hischier, another guy to watch, took a puck in the face on Saturday night, and he had a goal and an assist before he left the game, and he had just returned from an injury. He's the Devils captain now. He's only played 4 games this year. So he left with a towel, and they were pretty concerned after. They weren't sure what his status was going to be. Dylan Larkin, upper body injury, missed his first game since 2018 and 2019 on the weekend. That's a guy who has been obviously very, very durable and very, very valuable. But, you're looking at a Detroit team that is just not good at all. And then you take a guy like Larkin out of the lineup, and obviously you're taking a lot of speed. But anyway, he is the top line center. As much as that is 11 points in 22 games, not a ton of fantasy options in Detroit, but he is one of them. He does rack up a lot of shots. So if you're in a league that has a lot of shot rewards or a category, he's certainly a guy that you want to have. But the Wings are a team that also only plays 3 times this week, so him being out isn't going to be that big of a deal for you. Jack Eichel, the interesting situation with Eichel continues. He was a late scratch on last Thursday for the Buffalo Sabres. And then the Sabres get shut out 3-0 by the Philadelphia Flyers. And, there was a lot of back and forth dialogue when it comes to Jack Eichel, who, thankfully is back in the lineup. But whether he, what is the real story? Because the Buffalo Sabres, Ralph Kruger said at one point he was injured in New Jersey, and then something happened in warm-up, and then Eichel said something different. So there is a lot of turmoil going on in Buffalo. Thankfully, Jack Eichel is back in the lineup because the Sabres, are infinitely better with him. He hasn't been great. 2 goals this year, and a guy that generates so much speed, you have to think something is bothering him, and he didn't obviously score today. He does have 12 helpers, so it's not like this guy is totally dropped off the face of the earth like Jeff Skinner has. But if you're, if you're in a daily league, I would be leaning towards this guy bouncing out at some point. You just can't keep a goal scorer like him down as long. But if you're in a weekly league, you might have to look at better options in this situation. A couple of guys that aren't on this list, Travis Konechny and Thomas Hertl, both dealing with the COVID situations. They're on the COVID list. Hertl just got on it, so he's likely out 14 days. Konechny has been on there since February 14th Also, Colton Parayko, don't know what's going on with him. The Blues aren't saying. And Austin Matthews had that wrist injury, didn't play on Saturday night. Hopefully he returns for the rematch with the Oilers on Monday. I'm sure those of you that have Austin Matthews on your lineup are certainly missing the fact that he has 18 goals in 20 games this year. So, definitely Matthews might be taking away that mantle of best goal scorer in the NHL and best goal scorer in fantasy hockey as well. All right, we'll be back with our second segment in just a few seconds. We'll have some bold predictions and we'll vote on and off of Fantasy Island.
This is Fantasy Hockey Time with Dean Millard.
It's a rout. It's a blowout.
All right, Fantasy Hockey Time is presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports, and it's part of the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, your one-stop fantasy sports shop. We're building something all fantasy fans will love, and we're also looking for quality programming to join us. Reach out if you're interested in being part of the rotation, whether you have a daily, weekly, or even monthly show. If it's about fantasy, we'd love to chat. Give us a follow at UFF Sports, at UFH League, and at UFS Network for more information on how you can own the game. All right, one thing we're going to get going with right off the bat in this segment is we're going to get into the crystal ball and make some bold predictions.
Hear me now and believe this later.
Prediction? Yes, prediction.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
We want to pump you up.
All right, my bold prediction is about goaltending. And I'm going with Tuukka Rask, 2-0 with 2 shutouts. Might not equal Andre Vasilevsky from this week with 2 shutouts and 3-0 record and a .67 goals against average, .975 save percentage. But the Bees play 3 times, twice versus the Caps, 1 versus the Devils. Rask should start the first game versus the Caps and the last game versus the Devils, as Boston does a lot of 1-1. Rask would be his first shutout this year if he would get it, and it would certainly help some of the numbers that he has. He's having a pretty good season, but certainly could be better. I have Jakob Markstrom on one of my teams, but I'm not sure what's going on with him, so I went out and traded for Tuukka Rask before the deadline approaches, and I think Boston's first. He's going to get his wins. His other numbers will come down, and I think it'll work out into what I think will be a good trade. So, all right, as that's my bold prediction, it's time to get to Fantasy Island.
Welcome to Fantasy Island.
All right, time to vote.
Wendell is cut. Rudy is cut. Janie, you're gone. Steven, I like your hustle.
Get him a uniform.
Congratulations. The rest of you made the team. Except you, and you.
All right, voting somebody on, voting somebody off of Fantasy Island is what we will do here. And the guy I voted off, I just dropped him tonight, is Antti Raanta, goaltender of the Arizona Coyotes. As mentioned, I traded for Tuukka Rask, and I have Markstrom, so I had to release everybody's favorite uncle, Antti Raanta. And this is interesting. I drafted this guy as a rookie way back when. I think I've had him for 8 years almost. And I thought maybe this guy could be a poor man's Dominic Hasek, as he was stuck behind different guys in Chicago, went to the Rangers, ended up in the Coyotes organization, where he's now the de facto backup or 1B with Darcy Kemper. But injuries have hampered his development. And I had him in the minors for so long. I finally brought him up this year, signed him to a 3-year deal. And he never started a game for me because I went with Markstrom, and now I had to drop him. So it's like a long-term player development I had with this guy. But he just couldn't stay healthy. He has the tools. but he had the opportunities, couldn't stay healthy, and Darcy Kemper got really hot. So that's who I voted off. And the guy, I also voted off Noah Hannafin. I had him on my roster, but I like Noah Hannafin. I really like him as a player, but I needed to get more production at the blue line, and I voted on Jake Bean, former Calgary Hitman. And he is with the Carolina Hurricanes now and has 6 points in 8 games since February 15th. From the third pairing, along with Hayden Fleury. He's 22, Fleury's 24. Ride it while you can. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know if Bean is going to either get kind of elevated up and get a little bit more ice time and maybe some sugar power play time, or he's just going to, kind of fade away a little bit. But I'm going to try to get as much production out of Jake Bean as I can. So that is certainly why I decided to vote Jake Bean on to Fantasy Island. Who are you voting on or off Fantasy Island? Hit me up on Twitter at Duck Millard and let me know who is making or not making your lineup in your various fantasy hockey leagues.
Back to the pond, rookie.
This is Fantasy Hockey Time with Dean Millard.
Dean Youngblood, 5'10" 160 pounds. He's 17 years old. An American kid from Stanton. Scored 92 goals this year so far for the Stanton Flyers.
I got to tell you, the scouts in the UFHL and UFF sports would be much better at finding talented players than Ray, or whatever the hell that guy's name was in Youngblood, Chadwick's assistant GM or whatever. They're just finding about Dean Youngblood that, they had his brother. How did they not know about this? Bad scouting. You will not find that bad scouting in the UFFS, which is the presenting sponsors of Fantasy Hockey Time. It's the most realistic platform that there is. The Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, we mimic just about everything about the NHL, from a scouting program to actual 7-game playoff series. Yeah, you know how most of your fantasy leagues end like a couple of weeks before the end of the season? Not ours. We go right into the playoffs, and we have a playoff fantasy draft where the franchises that didn't make the playoffs, you get to redraft them. So let's say the Calgary Flames don't make the playoffs. Let's say that a franchise in our league doesn't make the playoffs. And they have Connor McDavid. For whatever reason, they didn't make the playoffs. Well, you could draft Connor McDavid for your playoff draft. It is just amazing. There is so much going on. And even better, they aren't just fantasy players. They're digital assets on the blockchain that you bid on, trade to build your team or your scouting platform. With UFFS, you own the game, so get in the game. Give them a follow at UFF Sports, at UFH League. And you can give us a follow at UFS Network for more information. You definitely own the game with UFF Sports.
Am I hot? Yeah, I'm hot.
It's some bull crap.
I'm your huckleberry.
Well, we're waiting.
That's a crock of crap.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
All right, so this is Fantasy Beef, where we will air our fantasy grievances, and I have a lot of them. I have a lot of thoughts on how fantasy should run, and the one thing I think fantasy should never be is a weekly event. Obviously in football, your teams only play once, and most of it is centered around a bunch of games, so it's easy to decipher. In baseball, basketball, hockey, injuries could happen on Tuesday or Monday night, and you're locked in with that player for that week. It's awful. And, aside from the fact that, people say, oh, there's no skill in daily. Well, yeah, there is. There's going to be times when you're going to have guys playing on different situations, but don't you always want best on best? I do. That's, I like the ability to know that if, in baseball, if my catcher gets hurt on Tuesday, I'm not hooped and not getting any points from that position for the rest of the week. The other thing I think weekly lineups do is they suck people's attention away. And here's an example. I'm in a weekly league in CBS. I've been in it for years. The reason I'm still probably in it is because I've just always been in it. I started with this league. We started it many, many years. Sidney Crosby was 06 was the first year that we started this league. And that's probably the reason I'm still in it, because it's a weekly lineup league. And you know what it does is it allows people to set their lineups, and then they just don't have to worry. They check in on Sunday and see if they won. And I know this because I've had to text owners in our league to say, hey, I made you a trade offer, because they're not checking in the league. So weekly, not only does it hamper your decisions, you're basically throwing a dart and saying, well, hopefully this guy stays healthy for the whole week. It sucks in that regard, and it sucks because guys and GMs and owners in the league, they just decide to check out, and they don't look at lineups. Well, they don't have to, because they're not making a lineup change, barely check scores or any kind of trade requests. So if you're in a weekly league, I feel I've just this year was managed to change our baseball league to a weekly league. Well, I became the commissioner, and I just made that decision because, especially with COVID, it's just absolutely brutal. There's no way you should have weekly lineups in COVID. And, there might be people that don't even know what I'm talking about because they're only in daily leagues, and they think the concept of a weekly league is absolutely foreign to them. And then, of course, there's like the DraftKings and a lot of those daily leagues, which I'm going to start getting into as we go, especially with baseball. Awesome that baseball, even in the preseason, returned on a Sunday. So that's my fantasy beef. The fact that there are weekly leagues, and I'm in one of them, is mine. What is your fantasy beef? What really grinds your gears, as Peter Griffin said, when it comes to fantasy sports? Hit me up on Twitter at Duck Millard or fantasyhockeytimepod@gmail.com.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
I don't think it taints it.
What'd you talk about, mister?
All you have to do is follow 3 simple rules.
All right, well, I just have one rule for you today, Mr. Dalton, and this is where I think I can help improve your league. Certainly, we implemented this in one of my football leagues because Jamie Thomas, of the color analyst for the Winnipeg Jets, he came up with this in our football league a long time ago. It's now been adopted in our hockey league that he started. Him and I were co-commissioners or whatever in that one, and we started implementing it in that. It's in our baseball. So it's the toilet bowl. So everybody that makes the playoffs is obviously competing for the championship trophy, and that's great. But the rest of the teams just have nothing to do. So, all the money is going to that. And I don't think that, non-playoff teams in those kind of leagues, the smaller kind of, not dynasty, not the serious money leagues should get the money. So they need something to play for. That's where the toilet bowl comes in. So in our leagues, we have rookie picks, but you could do this for actual draft picks. In one of my ESPN football leagues, the Parrot Head League, we started implementing this just for draft picks. So the bottom 4 teams play off for the toilet bowl. If you're in a 12-team league, I don't think 5 and 6 should get a shot at the first overall pick. But 4, 3, 2, and 1 play off in a 2-round. Winners go to the semis or to the final, and then boom, the winner of that gets the first overall pick, whether it's a rookie pick in your league or it's just the first overall free agent pick. The loser gets 2, and so on and so on. What it does is, it might take away a little bit of trades at the deadline in your league, but it keeps guys interested more. We all know those guys that 3-4 weeks into the season, they're checked out. They're starting injured guys, blah, 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 blah. This keeps the interest going, forces you to say, okay, if I'm going to go into a rebuild mode, okay, I'm doing this, and maybe I'll get slaughtered in the toilet bowl, but whatever. Or I could try to keep some pieces, win the toilet bowl, get the first overall pick, and really do it. So it just gives bottom non-playoff teams some options on how they want to deal with some of their trade options, and also it keeps them just a little bit more interested in the actual game when they're 15 games out of first place or something like that. So that's the toilet bowl. I highly recommend it for any non-playoff teams in your league. It gives them something to play for and keeps the attention as well. And that is going to just about wrap things up on our first installment of Fantasy Hockey Time. Presented, of course, by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports. And Fantasy Hockey Time is part of the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. It's your one-stop fantasy sports shop. Follow along on Twitter at UFS Network and find UFSN on YouTube. If you have a fantasy show, hit us up and join the fun. Thank you so much for tuning in to the program today. Big thanks to Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports for being the title and presenting sponsor. We'll have another episode next Monday morning. Record these on the Sunday night after the games wrap up and give you the goods for the rest of the week. My name is Dean Millard, trying to help you win your league and at least make it better. Have a great week in fantasy, everybody. We'll talk next Monday.